Welcome to the Football Garbage Time NFL podcast. My name is Wong, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Football Garbage Time. And with me is the OG co-host, Ryan Whitfield. Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I know you're not excited because we had all sorts of technical issues. I'm not going to bore our listeners with that. I am instead going to turn to baseball because I'm wearing my Wrigley Field baseball t-shirt right now because baseball season right around the corner. I am super excited about the Cubs, even though they're 0-2 already. What about you? You jazzed about the baseball season starting?
Yeah. I'm a 13-year-old athlete, so baseball season is more really for me at this point about sitting out watching him play year round, which is great.
Yeah.
But as a Red Sox fan, it's the first time to be excited in several years. So
Most definitely.
Yeah, I've seen some wild articles today, or at least one or two referencing that they might have a shot to win the AL. I'm not going that far, but
Wow.
it'll be more interesting than it's been in the last 3 or 4 seasons as a Red Sox fan. So
Yeah, as a Cubs fan, I just want to make the postseason. I just don't want to completely face plant in the last month of the regular season. I have a very low bar to be entertained in baseball, so that's why I love baseball because I have no expectations. Unlike football, which I have too many expectations, and we have so much to talk about today because we're going to talk about Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson going to the Giants. We're going to talk about Stefon Diggs going to your New England Patriots. This is a big one, I think, and so much more. Let's go ahead and get rolling. All right, let's talk about first Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson because Jameis Winston, the number 1 overall pick in the 2015 NFL draft, was signed by the New York Giants to a 2-year deal for $8 million. Russell Wilson, just 2 days later, signed to a 1-year deal worth $10.5 million guaranteed. And you got to wonder what's going on here because Russell Wilson, former Seahawk, obviously former Seahawk legend, former Steeler, almost legend. He turned into a pumpkin at the end of last season. Before that, all the Giants had in that quarterback room was Tommy DeVito. Now they got 3 quarterbacks there. What's going on? What's the impact on the New York Giants quarterback room having Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, and Tommy DeVito? Do they have their starter for next season in that room right now?
probably. No, that doesn't mean they've done a good job this offseason.
Right.
I mean, you just reference Russ turning into a pumpkin. I would argue he was pumpkin-ish or pumpkin adjacent all season, anyways. That even
pumpkin adjacent, I like that.
Good. Same with Fields earlier that year. So that we basically just saw the same formula in Pittsburgh last year, and it doesn't work. So they're just instead of Fields, they got Jameis mixed in there. Tommy DeVito, we know, right? Like what we're talking about.
Right.
And the other, Jameis, at least with the Steelers last year, look at a guy like Justin and say, okay, he's younger. Maybe he has that Geno Smith ascension. Whereas like Jameis and Russ have been around for a decade. Like we know who these guys are. We know what kind of players they are. I think it's more of a systematic issue in New York, meaning that this is what happens when you retain a coach and GM who should have been fired last year, and now they're just going to throw as much crap against the wall in a short-term way
as they possibly can. I mean, they didn't have many choices, right? If it wasn't Aaron Rodgers, then what do you got?
Even if they brought in Aaron Rodgers, like we're talking about moves that might make them a marginal, a team that's still in the race at the end of December, like this upcoming. There's no long-term plan there. And so again, the Giants should have just moved on from those two. And I like Dayball. Shine's not as much. I'm not as much of a fan of his decision making, but and not letting Saquon go because we know how I feel about running backs, but more about the Daniel Jones extension in the first place. So
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a tough year. Like we talked about it all off season, right? It wasn't a great free agency class. It's not a great draft class, particularly if you need a quarterback. So it's kind of like an impossible situation, anyways. But yeah, I think the larger fallout here is, and someone whose team is sitting at the number 4 overall. not thrilled that this is what the outcome is because I don't think they're going to take Shedeur Sanders. I think that they are. I also, I do leave open the possibility that they might bring in Sanders and they're not going to carry all four, but maybe they're just going to have a four-way competition in camp. And Dave All is like that desperate, hoping something is good enough to
Yeah.
get 9 wins. But I think this more tells you that they're going to probably go a different route, and we're not going to see 2 quarterbacks taken in the top 3. We'll probably see Ward, Hunter, and Abdul all come off the board as the top 3 guys now.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to talk about that a little bit because now, and that was going to be, the impact here, as we said, is kind of in the draft. That's where it's all going to really be impacted. And for a while, everyone was tying Shedeur Sanders to the Giants with their number 3 overall pick. And there's been a lot of discussion about whether Shedeur Sanders should be a number 3 overall pick or not. Now, that not being said, we know Cam Ward is essentially going to be locked into the Tennessee Titans at number 1 overall. At least that's what everyone seems to think, particularly after his pro day down in Miami. So what's going to happen now? You mentioned a couple there that I think are really interesting. You mentioned Travis Hunter. You mentioned Abdul Carter. I think obviously Travis Hunter, a great pick for the Giants if they stay at 3 because they need wide receivers and they need cornerbacks. And he's both, right? I mean, he's basically generational talent in both positions. There may be one of the few teams in which he can play both positions, at least to some extent, is because the Giants have so many deficiencies on both sides that he might actually benefit there. But what do you think here? I mean, let's talk about Shedeur Sanders for a second. Does he slide now that the Giants are out there? Because there are a couple places that I think he may end up. And it still could happen. Like, for instance, the Browns don't really have anybody but Kenny Pickett right now. They're at the number 2. The Saints, I mean, they have Derek Carr and Spencer Rattler. We already kind of know what we got there, but they got a new head coach in Kellen Moore. They're at the number 9 spot. The Steelers, of course, currently have no one except for Mason Rudolph under center. And they have a great dominant defense returning. They have DK Metcalf and George Pickens there. So they got all the other pieces, but they have no quarterback. They're at number 21 overall. Maybe they can make a deal. And of course, there's that Jets. They have Justin Fields at 7. And I have kind of an outlier possible pick. The Dolphins at number 13. Tua is always injured. Maybe they want to set up somebody behind him at this point. What do you think about all those choices? Do you think Shedeur Sanders will slide? Or do you think one of these guys are going to end up picking them in the top 10? Or is there going to be a trade? What do you think is going to happen with Shedeur Sanders?
It's a lame answer, but I think it's just completely unpredictable. I don't think Shedeur is a first-round talent. I think he is absolutely, at best, a second-round talent, and I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's overly.
Oh, wow.
I don't love the arm talent. I don't think there's a good leadership quality there. We talked about stuff throughout last season. Times throwing his offensive line under the bus. Like, there's not a lot of accountability.
Right.
Everything's good everything's me when it's going well, and it's we when it's not going well. And I just don't. Or and I'm not a big Cam Ward guy either. Again, I wrote for Kane's Sided last year on
right. You didn't mention your concerns with Cam Ward.
Yep. I think it's a terrible quarterback class. So but the lame answer is, I just don't know. It's so unpredictable because I don't think any of us thought Bo Nix was going to go as high as he did last year.
Yeah.
Or that the Falcons were all of a sudden, like we're talking about, does this take the Giants out of the running, because of the guys that they signed? If you had asked us all this time last year, and
we thought the Falcons would be out. Yeah.
We all said the Falcons are not going to get a quarterback. Now they just signed Kirk Cousins all that money, and then they go and draft Michael Penix with the number 8 overall pick. So it's just, people get stupid when it comes to quarterbacks. So any one of those teams you just said could take him. I think he's going to slide. I think New Orleans is definitely a possibility. I think ultimately Pittsburgh will go the route of Aaron Rodgers.
Interesting.
And there's another team you mentioned there. I think.
Yeah, the Jets, Dolphins. There's also offense.
I don't know if the Dolphins will do it, but the videos surfacing of Tua in his not so in shapeness of the offseason,
right?
Photos from last year. Like there's a particular video on a boat right now where Tua's not looking like he's been taken care of.
Ready to go. So, yeah.
So maybe the Dolphins are desperate, but again, it's just. And I don't love Tua, but I think at best you're talking Cam Ward or Shedeur being Tua. That's best case scenario. So you
Yeah. And it's not so bad if he can stay healthy. I mean, it's not like I mean, listen, I don't think Tua is the best quarterback ever, but if he stays on the field, he gives them a fighting chance. When he's off the field, we saw what happened to the Dolphins. They were a piece, they were a load, they were a flaming wreck. I mean, they were absolute dumpster fire wreck.
no, I agree.
So
As long as you have two high-end number one receivers, one of the fastest running backs in football, and one of the better offensive minds calling plays, Tua can be successful in the NFL, which is a way of saying that Tua sucks. That's wrong. But, like, yeah, I mean, Tua's functional in that offense where he's got a lot of good stuff going on around him. But,
yeah,
I mean, again, you just got to look at the risk-reward or the value of that. And, again, I look at it and go, best case scenario, he turned that Shador's one of Shador or Cam Ward. I don't think Cam obviously going to slide, but just saying for argument's sake, that those two, like at best, I think they're Tua. So like, the Dolphins, this is not the draft to all of a sudden cut out Tua's legs from underneath them, even if
that's fair.
Even if
that's
legs
fair.
are supporting extra weight these days.
Right. Well, that's also fair. But what about the Browns at number 2? I mean, listen, they got Kenny Pickett, right? I mean, I don't feel great about going into the season with Kenny Pickett as my number 1. I want some competition there. I mean, the Browns really need to shake off the stench of Deshaun Watson. I mean, I don't know what you're going to do with that. So why not take Shador Sanders as kind of like, let's take some attention away from what we've done in the past. Do you don't think that's a good move for them?
I don't know. It's a bad move for them. I don't know. Again, they're a team that's so hard to predict for because they just historically current regime and past regimes just make the wrong decision.
They make a lot of bad decisions.
They won this offseason. I mean, by the time they're competitive again, Myles Garrett will be irrelevant. Yet they gave him all that makes
a ridiculous amount of money. Right?
There are certain positions that can impact your team that you put money towards. If you're rebuilding, defensive end is not one of them. So it makes no sense that they did that. So I just look at it and go like, I mean, Shador's not going to change the DNA of that team. So if I'm so you're asking me to, I guess you're asking me what they will do. I'm telling you, it's hard for me to say what they will do because if it's me, I'm building if it was me, I would have let Myles Garrett go and use that money elsewhere, and then I would have drafted Abdul Carter at 2. That's how I would. Now that we have Myles, I mean, you can't just have 2 great defensive ends. So if I'm them, I'm taking Travis Hunter, but I still don't even like the Travis Hunter play. I just would have rebuilt it from the ground up. So they could take Shador. I don't see why they would because it's not going to have an immediate impact. I'm not so far away. By the time they're relevant again, I think they'll already have their move on for Shador.
Yeah, and this is the thing though. So I agree with that. I agree that probably not the right move for the Browns, and they don't make a lot of great moves anyway. But the Steelers probably the most likely candidate here. I mean, I see that as being a savvy move for them. If he slides to 21, I guarantee that the Steelers will take him. But I can see the Steelers even moving up because if he slides a little bit past some of these guys in the early rounds, right? Because he slides past, the Browns at 2, slides past the Jets at 7, slides past the Saints at 9. Suddenly it's like, okay, you're sitting there at the Steelers at 21. Maybe it's time to trade and go and get them at 10 or 11. You don't give up as much, and you go get a little bit of a deal on somebody who can bring a little bit of excitement there to a offense that really only needs theoretically a decent quarterback to be successful, and because the defense is so dominant there. So I could see that happening. I will say this though, I don't think the Giants are completely out of the race. I know they have 3 quarterbacks, but keep in mind that as you just mentioned, Kirk Cousins was signed to like $100 million, and they went and drafted Michael Penix Jr. This deal for Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston next year is going to cost them a sum total of $14 million, right? That's nothing. That's less than most starting quarterbacks get paid anywhere else in the league. So they're still in the mix. I still think that Shador Sanders is a possible person in the mix there. And maybe DeVito ends up being like on their practice squad or something, I mean, you don't need to carry him along there. So I can see that being a thing. And 2 things you could say about Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston is they're probably overly positive. So if nothing else, they're going to bring that to the locker room. I don't know if it's good, bad, or ugly, but they're going to bring some positivity there. And maybe that's a good place to put Shador Sanders for 1 year of a redshirt type season. With that said, I agree, though. I don't think they'll go that direction. I think Travis Hunter is the best pick for them. I think they would benefit from Abdul Carter. I think they would benefit from Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan as well. So I think there's a lot of other needs there for the Giants for them to go and take Shedeur Sanders. At this
I would
point.
just say on it is like I'm trying to think of there's some other quarterback drafts out there. Whatever year Lockhart went to Tennessee, and I'm drawing a blank on it, but that draft where there was like 3 or 4 of these types of same quarterbacks taken, like, and it's like I think there's so much coverage and there's so much time that people start trying to talk themselves. I watched Cam Ward in real time last year. He's not an NFL quarterback. He is not.
Right.
Again, he's just not. He's just. I don't think he has the aptitude. I don't think. Brady has been on record talking about this a lot the last couple of years, that the college game is so simplified. Everyone's turning to the sideline. They don't have to read defenses on their own. The coaches are doing so much of the IQ work. And I look even at like the college level of IQ, and I don't see it in Cam. I see a lot of physical gifts, but I don't see a lot of ethic and drive and detail oriented. And again, the whole thing with what happened in the bowl game last year shows that maybe he has some judgment lapses on like what he should do in moments, just from a high level standpoint. And any other position that doesn't matter, but quarterback, you're the CEO of the team, so it does matter.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'll just say this, that like you mentioned the Steelers might move up. They might. I wouldn't. This is not the draft. I don't care where guys fall. I would pass on quarterbacks completely in this draft. If I don't have a quarterback right now, I'm building the rest of my roster like the Chiefs in the early 2010s and waiting till the draft where Mahomes is there, kind of deal. As opposed to overreaching for a quarterback. So I'll put this on the record. We can put this in the pantheon of our notes, and we can come back to it in a couple of years. Whatever draft Cam Ward and draft Shedeur, wherever those two land, whatever people actually take them, granted that they both go in the first round, that coach combo will be out in both spots in 3 years.
Okay.
You guys will
take
not
receipts
have jobs in 3 years.
We'll take receipts on that one. All right. Let's turn to the other side of this, because I do want to talk about Stefon Diggs, because this is a big one. He's coming off an ACL injury from October of last year. He was signed by your New England Patriots to a 3-year deal for $69 million, $26 million guaranteed. The Patriots receivers last year were ranked 28th in the NFL with just 161 catches and 10 touchdowns. And actually, they were ranked last in terms of total receiving yards. Diggs, before his injury, had 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Last time the Patriots had a 1,000-yard receiver was Julian Edelman in 2019. How do you feel about this Stefon Diggs acquisition? And is this a good fit for Drake May?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple different angles, so bear with me. One I'll say quickly, just because I actually made that joke last night, and I didn't look up what year. I assumed it was 2019, but in my group chat with my friends who are all New England Patriot fans, one of our friends is quite surly and negative Patriots these days, and when we were talking about the Diggs trade last night, he goes, "It's just a name. Like, this is a dumb move by them." And I said, was on pace for another 1,000-yard season last year. He goes, "Not exactly a metric that holds as much weight anymore." And I said, "Yeah, unless you haven't had it happen in your receiving core in 6 years." So yeah, so 1,000 yards doesn't mean what it meant anymore. But I think I think the highest yard total of a receiver for the Patriots since Edelman was Damiere Byrd in 2020, and he had like 850 yards.
Wow.
Most people forget even played in the NFL. So it's been a while. So yeah, beggars can't be choosers. So the Patriot fans should be excited about this move. So one, I mean, I guess we'll talk about a big picture. I like the fit because I didn't care for the receiving class this year. And I mean both via trade and via free agency. Debo, old and broken down at this point. And old, I mean, in terms of his playing age at this point, everything he's gone through. DK Metcalf, not an elite route runner. A nice piece if you have a good offense, but if you're banking on him to be your number one guy, his limitations and his ability to run a multitude of routes is not very well rounded. So I not somebody that I was super high on bringing in. Chris Godwin, who I like, didn't want to leave Tampa. Patriots offered him a bunch of money, but another guy who's older, broken down, all this stuff. So all these kind of more long-term options, I didn't love those guys. The reason why I like Diggs is because it is short. And I got to look at the year by year, and I haven't. But I would assume with the $26 million that by year 3 they can cut and get out from underneath this pretty easily. So you're really looking at like a 2-year Band-Aid, which is exactly what they need right now. Because again, it's not a great draft class for receivers either. more and more I've gone through, the guy who I'm most excited about is a 4th rounder, Torrey Horton, out of Colorado State. So like when I'm the most excited about somebody like that, it means that the high end guys are not good. There's that report, or I saw somebody write about this, that the more teams dive on Tet, the more he falls down draft boards. That's not a good sign.
That's not good. Nope.
The more they do work on him, that he's falling further down. And then you got somebody like an extremely productive receiver in college in Miami, Xavier Restrepo, running a 4.48 or whatever, 40 there. And now he said he pulled his hamstring, and then he claims he was running a 4.52 in his training. Who knows if that's real or not? But what a lot of great options. So Diggs is a perfect fit for 2 years to come in and just be a guy who helps change that side of the ball. The Pats have added a lot on both sides. This, twofold. There are people who, especially locally, who are running away with this now and getting overly excited about it. And you're not getting 2020 Stefon Diggs.
Yes, we're not.
That illusion, right? He's not going to be that guy. But if he can be a 1,000-yard guy, and between that and the additions and making they have a good draft, they can just be more representative. I think I had pre-Diggs like the Pats around 7 to 8 wins this year, and I think I'd have to go through each individual game. But right now, I mean 9 to 10, I don't think is out of question. And coming off 2 4-win seasons, so that's a nice jump. So I think he'll be productive. I think he'll work well with Drake. I know he's got and I've been critical of it on this show in private, the overly demonstrative stuff on the sideline. I do think someone put it best, and this is I think the best way to put it, that with him, it's not just about we've seen other guys in the past who just want the ball. That's not what it is. Diggs wants to win. But most of the time, he just thinks the best way to win is for him to get the ball.
Right. Well, that's kind of what you want, I mean, that makes sense.
Kind of the combo of the two, and he has taken it way too far on the sideline before we've seen. But I'll still take a competitor over a non-competitor. It's better than I have. The other comp I've heard, though, and I just need to put a stop to this because I think people are getting too caught up on just the baseline stats last year. He was on pace for 1,000, and he had the protection of Nico Collins. And was he actually good? But the local talking point today has been. There's actually a caller to the local sports station that first was critical and said that the Pats biffed this whole thing because they pay for Diggs this year because they just want to pony up a little bit of money last year for a little bit more money last year for Calvin Ridley. Let me be very clear, and I've made it very clear I don't like Calvin Ridley anyways, but let me put on the record that in his best season versus Diggs' worst season, Diggs is still twice the receiver that Calvin Ridley will ever be. So again, he's not 2020 Diggs. So the people who are overselling the Patriots signing him need to calm down. But let's not get stupid and go the other direction. And if you want any proof of that, because the comp is that people talked about is that Calvin was finished with 1,000 yards last year. Basically, if you extrapolate Diggs' 8 games and put it up against 17, you need to put up the same stats as Ridley.
Right.
Well, Ridley was also the number 1 and really the only receiver last year in Tennessee, so he's going to get high volume targets. And then for those of us who still believe in PFF, like I do, Ridley I think was like the 43rd ranked graded receiver last year, and Diggs was 21. So I'll pay an extra couple million on a 2-year short-term deal for Diggs and his competitiveness versus doing that for Calvin Ridley. So I think honestly best possible outcome for the Patriots outside of. I was still hoping that A.J. Brown was going to force his way out of Philly.
Okay.
Honestly, best fit, in my opinion, in this offseason for them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I do think it's. I totally agree with you, and obviously you're much more in touch with the Patriots than I am. But I think it's a fantastic move for them to build around Drake May, give him a legit weapon here. Particularly, he's probably the best wide receiver left in free agency at this point. Now, turning to the other side of this, the Patriots have the number 4 overall pick. They no longer need to go for a wide receiver, obviously, because there aren't really great wide receivers anyway, and you have one. So you can get those later in the draft, like I said, in the 3rd and 4th round. What do you think the Patriots need to do in the beginning of the draft now at the number 4? My opinion, obviously, and I told you this pre-show, is that they need to work on their offensive line. They need a left tackle. They need a left guard. I mean, Drake May was sacked 34 times in 13 games played during his rookie season. Patriots were 31st in pass block win rate, and their 52 total sacks allowed was tied for the 5th most. Now, I know how painful that could be for a quarterback being a Bears fan. I think that it makes sense for you to grab a guy, but there is no obvious tackle to get. I mean, Will Campbell has measurements 32 and 5/8 inch on arm length. It's gotten some people some red flags there. Armand Membu has been bantered about, the offensive tackle from Mizzou. I love him, but is he worth a number 4 overall pick? I don't know. What do you do? What do you think the Patriots should do with their number 4 overall pick?
First of all, Will Campbell got measured at LSU Pro Day, and apparently he's got a 45-inch arm wingspan now.
Really? All right.
Yeah, but no. Again, so I hope this helps quell it a little bit. I'm still worried they're going to reach for Will Campbell. They need to do what the Washington Commanders, almost said their old name, Washington Commanders did last year, and they followed that blueprint so far. They need to see that out to the finale here, which is it's a 2-year rebuild. Now we have the quarterback going into the first year, whereas they got their quarterback in the first year. But they need to do what the Commanders just did. Just build out the middle of the roster this offseason, which is what they've done. They've signed a bunch of like tier 2, that obviously Diggs and Williams, are their big hits.
Milton Williams. Yeah.
Yes. Those are 2 big like home run swings, but the rest of it are just like good, solid football players. Harold Landry's not who he used to be, so you're building up the roster. So now you go to the draft, knowing that it should be a 2-year plan and that you're probably already somewhere between 7 to 10 wins now this year, which is a remarkable improvement from last year. Do not reach for a left tackle. Do not do it. I have done a crap ton of mock drafting on the Pro Football Network tool. I'm actually doing a Patriots mock right now for the College Football Network site that'll be going live later this week.
Excellent.
And I'll tell you that I got lucky. Abdul fell to 4, so I took Abdul there.
Yes.
And then I go with and I've done this on a multiple of these, but Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end out of Bowling Green, is arguably the number 2 tight end, should be there in the second round. And
Excellent.
then a guy like Jonah Savanaia, however you say that, the tackle who could be more of a swing tackle guard combo from Arizona. Like that is, I'd rather go that route, to be honest. Now you have an elite edge rusher on a defense you've built up, and if you put him on that defense now, if you're lucky enough to get Abdul and you throw him there, then you go get a move tight end like Fannin in the second round, and then you take your tackle in the third round. And again, there's some questions he might move into guard. Like they're just not going to be able to solve their whole offensive line this offseason. So they went and got Bradbury at center. They got Moses at right tackle. Hopefully. Onwenu comes in better shape this year. Like, here's the thing that the guys who really study the offensive line in football or offensive line play in the NFL, and I'm not one of them, but the people that do will tell you, you don't need anybody elite on your offensive line. You just need 5 guys where not a single one of them sucks. If you have a singular weak link, you're going to be bad, but you just need really a good solid group. And if you have a Lane Johnson, that helps. But so a long way of saying, I just want the Patriots to take best available. I don't want them to reach in this draft because they're not real contenders still. So they need to and if you build and you do what the Commanders did last year, well, then you can go make the home run trade for gas mask, Tunsil.
Larmy Tunsil. Gas mask. I love it.
once you're fully set though, that's when you can go do that. So I think that if they go drafting for need, they're a bit ahead. And Elliott Wolf, let's see if he actually means it, claimed as much, that last year they drafted for need, and that's where you get in trouble. And I said that this year they're just going to go best player available. I hope they stick. I truly do. Do I think they will? I don't know, but I hope they do.
I don't hate on Armand Membu from Missouri. I think he's actually a very talented offensive tackle. Did worlds of good for himself at the combine. I actually wouldn't absolutely hate the Patriots taking him at number 4. I mean, if I were a Patriot fan, I think it'd be better if they trade back a little bit and then maybe take him around 10, 11. It makes a little more sense to me. But, and for instance, if Shedeur Sanders is at 4, which I think he will be at 4, at least that's my guess, then maybe the Patriots decide there's going to be, the Steelers want to jump up. I don't know. Trade back with the Steelers. Maybe you can still get Armand Membu a little bit for later in the first round. Either way, I don't want to sleep on him. I know he's probably not worth a number 4 overall, but I do think he would be a solid tackle that would really, really automatically upgrade that offensive line for the Patriots. With that said,
I think the draft will be interesting in that case because, I agree. People again around here are saying this a bunch, that if Abdul and and Hunter off the table at 4,
right,
then you
got
should
to take
trade
them if they're on. Right.
But here's the thing, and like, this is what most draft experts are telling you. The top 3 are pretty solidified. Shador's the one that, people just can't figure out if he's going to get drafted or not. But like, just from a prospect standpoint, those top 3 are pretty all agreed upon.
Yeah.
But then 4 through like 16 is just a hodgepodge of like dart throws. Like, there's no perfect prospect. There's nobody good in there.
I agree.
So it's like, if you're sitting at 14, I wouldn't, if I'm the GM at 14, I'm not moving up to 4 because I'll just take whoever's best available at 14 because they all have like, they're all in the second tier of guys in this draft is so muddled that you're better staying put and drafting where you're at. And so I think the Patriots are going to look to move that pick, and I don't think they're going to be able to because they're not going to get like, a pick swap in the first and an extra 5th. And it's
right.
You really,
what's the point?
Really that right? Like, if somebody wants to give you a pick swap and their second, well, in a heartbeat,
then we're talking, right?
But I just don't think you're going to get that in this draft. I don't want to downplay it because I love this time of year, and I'm sorry to anyone who might just be getting into the draft right now. This draft sucks. Like, it just it's really good if you love defensive tackles, interior offensive linemen, and running backs.
If that psychs you up, you are in for a treat.
It's great. Like Trayvon Henderson going in the 3rd round, and I don't even talk about running backs very often. But Trayvon Henderson's in the 3rd round. That's a steal. That's
running
great.
backs are deep this year. That's the thing. They're really, really deep this year.
The Texas, I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head. God, he blew up the Notre Dame backup when he came in the playoff game. Mbuka? No, maybe Mbuka. Is that what it is? Anyways,
I'm still trying to figure out who we're talking about in Texas.
We're doing live research on the show.
Yeah, I'm sure people love this. They love this when we do this.
And they do this on the radio, so get out. Andrew Makuba. There we go, Makuba. Jesus. Okay. Andrew Makuba is somebody that you could see going in like in the late 2nd or 3rd round, and like that's another like in other drafts he might be the star safety prospect, but like. So they're really deep in those positions. But if you're looking to improve your team, or you're just getting into the draft right now, and you're like, tell me about the receivers and
you're sorely disappointed.
Tell me about the edge guys. Tell me about the corners. The wrong year for that. Those guys aren't here this year.
Totally agree. All right, that brings us to the end of the show. Let's hit the air horn on the show here. Which that was supposed to be the air horn. It was a very silent air horn. There it is.
That sucks.
That was a weak ass air horn right there.
From 7 p.m. on tonight.
All right. Give us your social media so people can follow you, Ryan.
Yeah, should be listed right there. At Ryan Whitfield NE. Follow me. I'll be doing more draft coverage from now until next month.
All right, definitely follow Ryan. Give him a shout out and come at him if you don't agree with anything, because he will engage. So watch out.
That's fine.
All right, you can find me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at FB Garbage Time. You can find me on the Football Garbage Time page on. Enjoy your NFL week.